Welcome to Unguarded, where we talk about relationships and life in every season. And we're so excited to be joining with you. I'm your host, Bec Smith, and this is my
The
amazing...
one and only host. Yeah, Bec Smith. You said
No,
I'm your host, not we're your hosts.
we're your hosts. I'm your
cool.
host, and you're the host.
Thought we were doing this together, but no, I'm a
Okay,
guest.
we should just...
I'm a guest on this podcast. So honored to be here. Thank you for having me on Unguarded. I've heard great things about it.
We're your hosts, Bec and Joe.
That's
Joe
right.
and Bec.
Whichever order you want.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, but how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fabulous. Incredible. Best I've felt in years. Is it that obvious? Yeah, fighting a little bug, you know?
Yeah.
Just sound like if I cough on this episode and it sounds like I have smoker's lung or
you're
emphysema,
dying. Yeah.
it's nothing to be alarmed. The Lord is covering me. But yeah, we're not feeling awesome.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about life. Sometimes you got to push through the moments that are great and the moments that aren't. So
It's
we're
true.
here.
You could have canceled, but you didn't. Good job.
Nah, we don't cancel. The people need us.
It's true.
You know, relationships are at stake.
Yeah, relationships are at stake.
Yeah, very much
Yeah.
so.
You know, it's interesting because I met with someone DM'd me a couple of days ago and was like, hey, can you meet just to talk about relationships and marriage? And, you know, this week is so insane because it's the week before Christmas and schedule is insane. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, we do a podcast about relationships. And if we don't meet with people about relationships, then what are we doing this for? And she was like, I get it if you want to do it after Christmas because it's so crazy. And I was like, no, it has to be now. Like, we have to make sure that we meet immediately. And I don't want you to drop off, like not meet and then we don't meet, you know, because that happens a lot. You say you're going to meet someone and then you never make a time and then it just doesn't happen. And I think like meeting with her, I was like, you know what? As I was driving to meet her, I kept thinking, this is crazy that I'm doing this, but this is what matters. Like people matter most. And then afterwards I had the thought, oh my gosh, like I hope that people would fight for me in the same way that I'm like fighting for her and her best life. And I was like, okay, that's the most important thing for Christmas is like making people know that they're loved and that they're special. So anyhow, that's what we do it for. You said for the people.
And I think we also do it or why you do it is because you're very curious about people.
That's true, actually. Yes.
And you
I
know,
do love
and
hearing people's stories.
wanting to know more, and it captures your attention and your interest. You know, which is I think a good place to start in our conversation today, right? Talking about pillars of a relationship, right?
Yeah.
We're having a few different weeks where we're going to dive into different things that we've noticed, relationships that thrive, foundational pieces to any relationship, and curiosities, one aspect that is essential to a healthy relationship.
Yeah,
it's essential
true.
to the formation of a relationship, both if you're talking romantically, but also friendship, also, as humans. The more curious you are, the more you're going to grow.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, maybe we just start with what is it about you that you have tapped into the power of curiosity? Like what draws you to people that you can meet with somebody in the middle of a crazy time, or you can, walk up to a stranger that you just saw,
That's true too.
Yeah, what fuels your curiosity?
I mean, that's a great point. I think people have really interesting stories, and I love hearing about people's lives. So, even with her, it's a gift to me for her to actually, first of all, to trust me and to like give me that space in her life to potentially find a new friend. And then I'm always curious about like, okay, so you're here now and this is the conflict that you're facing, but how did you get here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it always leads backwards to, your childhood and how you felt as a child and like your family dynamics that to me is like very fascinating, because I'm always looking at myself and going like, okay, how did I get here? Does my limiting beliefs, where did they begin? How did I get to this place? Why do I think friendship is this way and relationships should be this way? Because I always want to be like, I want to grow as a person, and you have to be curious about how did you arrive to this place. And like that, so that part I really love, like figuring out how did someone get to a place so that you can maybe not go to the same place that they're going, or how do you get to the place that they're going. And then one thought that just really comes to my mind is like, I love going when I had kids with me and they went at school during the day, we would go to the park all the time. And what I love about going to the playground parks is that you meet the most interesting people. And one time I went, and there was this older guy, I think he seemed like the grandfather of the kids. And he had a missing arm. So it was like cut off from the elbow. And I was like, oh, and he mentioned it. He was like, oh, it was windy that day. And he's like, oh my gosh, it's windy, and yet I can still feel the pain of the wind on this arm, and it's not even there.
Phantom pain?
Phantom pain, yeah. And this is, I think, been, maybe he said like 10 years or something or more since it's happened. He like said it randomly, kind of my direction. And I was like, oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. That's so crazy that you feel that. He's like, yeah, I know. So then we just started striking up a conversation. Then he begins to tell me like what he used to do in life. And he's like, I drove trucks for big films, and that he worked on James Cameron's film for Titanic. And I was like, oh my God, I love that film. And he's like, yeah, of course, that was the most massive film. And the things that he did in that film were like breaking. So he started telling me about the story of how he used to drive trucks from like LA to Mexico, and then he met Elvis Presley. He worked on a movie with him. I'm just like, this is the coolest thing. I'm talking to some truck driver for films, and yet he's met the most interesting people. And he told me how he lost his arm, that he was driving one of the big trucks, and he slipped off the side of the road down a hill, and luckily something stopped the truck from falling, so he didn't die. So he was like, I was very close to death, but I lost my arm in the process. But those are the things, like, I like the fact that I would never have thought, because he was, in his 80s or something, late 70s, 80s, that you wouldn't generally think, oh, we'll become friends. But I love those moments where people come in general situations, like going to the playground and you have kids, that you have that commonality that you're there, and then a conversation can strike and you learn about someone's life.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the best. I could have stayed there like for another few hours. I was like, tell me more. Who else did you meet? Like, to me, that's interesting, is finding about people that you may not have thought that you'd had anything in common, and yet you find the most fascinating things.
Yeah.
What do you feel? Because I know that you're always curious about people.
I haven't met James Cameron's DP with one arm.
Well, not DP, but he was a production guy, right?
Sorry,
yeah.
truck. Maybe he's a truck driver and a DP. Maybe it was Leo, and we don't know that part of the story.
I know I should talk to him about Leo. Oh my gosh, why didn't I ask him about Leonardo? Okay, yeah.
Yes. What?
Well, what I know that, like, even when we met, you said that you love people from different cultures. You grew up with friends, and I feel like you had such a diverse friend group growing up, because you like people that are different from you.
I do. I love people who are different than me. I love people who are the same as me as well. I just love people in general. But yeah, I think it was the byproduct of moving around a lot as a kid. My dad in the military, that you had to adapt to a new culture and a new context. And so I think that was some of it, but I think huge aspect of it was just I was always fascinated with people. I was fascinated with other cultures, and I was curious, and I wanted to know more. Like, I always find it interesting, especially now, like there's certain aspects of like woke culture that kind of, drive me a little mad.
Yeah, you should talk about that. Go on.
But we're going to talk about everything, but one aspect of it that I find interesting, and maybe we'll get in some hot water with this, but we'll go there, is the idea of like certain aspects of culture appropriation, and if you're unfamiliar with that, that's basically talking about when different cultures like basically steal aspects of another culture.
Okay.
And it can be taboo, people taking different things from Native American culture, people taking different things from Black culture, Asian culture. And the idea of culture appropriation, I understand, but for me, the interesting aspect of it is thinking that certain things belong only to one culture. Like, I think that's just a limited belief. I think that's a short-sighted view of the world. Like, I don't see anything as something that should only belong to me, but maybe I'm a cultivator of it. Maybe I've been entrusted with an aspect of it, and my responsibility is now to bring it to other cultures, to other people, to bring to the forefront, right? I don't understand why there's certain things that we think are only supposed to be protected in a certain culture. For instance, food.
Yes. Give me an example, yeah.
Like, can you imagine if sushi was only enjoyed and experienced in Japan?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if gumbo never made its way out of the South? Can you imagine if tacos was in a tiny little village in Mexico and nobody else in the world experienced the beauty of when the right meat meets the right tortilla, meets the right salsa, right? We think certain beautiful things that may have been birthed in a certain culture are supposed to just stay in that culture. I think that's a limited view of how we are supposed to engage with each other.
Yeah.
Like, the beauty of sharing the world with the world is that you get to bring your uniqueness, your gifting, your talent to those who have yet to experience it and encounter it. And then people can put their own flavor on it. They can put their own unique stamp on it. But I think the world is more connected when we live as a whole rather than just for what's in front of me right now.
Yeah. So can you give me an example of like the woke culture you were saying that where the people have been upset that cultural appropriation has happened?
Yeah, music. So there's certain cultures, there's certain people that think other cultures, mostly white people, can't do X, Y, and Z. They can't have rap music. They can't have Latino music. There's hairstyles.
Like, for instance, like Eminem.
I mean, Eminem has gone past that now because his talent supersedes so much of this conversation.
You know what's funny is our kids yesterday were like, who do you like better, Eminem or Slim Shady? And I was like, what, you think I was born yesterday?
What did you say?
I was like, they're the same person. And then she's like, oh, dang it. How do you know that? I'm like,
and all the kids, they asked me, they didn't hit me with that one. They asked me, who do you think is better, Eminem or Kendrick Lamar?
Yeah, I was like, okay,
I won't say who. One of our kids said Rick Lamar. And I said, well, that's how I know your friends are talking to you, because you said Ken Rick, not Kendrick. So then I had to show them some Kendrick songs with some words that maybe they shouldn't have heard, but
hey.
I wanted to hear an LA legend. But yes, you see it a lot in music. You see it a lot in fashion. You see a lot of conversation with hairstyles. Like people went off. I remember years ago went off on Justin Bieber and somebody else because he had cornrows. And I'm just like, this is the wrong application to what could be an interesting dialogue. Like
him embracing cornrows should be a good thing, right? Is what you're saying? It
can be if it looks cool.
Yeah.
That's the irony, is it looked terrible. So
okay.
It's not even that Justin Bieber shouldn't be able to rock braids. It's that if you're gonna rock braids, it's gotta look good. That's the issue. But my whole point in that is I think we're missing the mark when we think we have to gatekeep certain aspects of culture rather than share it. Right? I want to share the best parts of my culture, share the best parts of my personality, share the best parts of what I've learned about. Like, can you imagine if every human being gate kept all of the like learning that they had, all the wisdom that they found, all of the discovery in life, if they were like, no, this just simply belongs to me, or this simply belongs to my family, or this simply belongs to my culture, for me, that's such a shallow side to the prism.
Yeah.
Whereas,
that's a good point.
no, we're supposed to, like, how can I make every environment that I'm in better? You know, how can I unleash the uniqueness in others and help pull out them? And sometimes the only way you can do that is when you really tap in to a high level of curiosity.
Yeah, that's a great point. It makes me think like, okay, so we are so different from each other, and I'm from New Zealand, born in New Zealand.
Where's New Zealand for those people in the pod that have no idea?
I mean,
people have
Google
no
it.
idea. Google it. That's what we're telling people now.
I don't know.
Just
Go look at a world
Google
map.
it. Do you not know where it is?
I mean, south of the equator, near Australia.
That is the beauty of New Zealand. If you
It's
wonder
so
where
it's
New
so
Zealand
tiny.
is, buy Australia.
I mean,
And you
it's
wonder
so,
why Kiwis have a complex.
I know,
You
it's
can,
true.
as a Kiwi, you can
Yeah.
even pick where in the world they were outside of its relation to Australia.
I mean, it's so tiny that I have seen world maps where it isn't on there. It's
It's
that
not
tiny.
that. How much smaller is it than Australia?
Oh no, significantly. I think like Australia's like this and New Zealand's like this.
Okay.
Australia has a huge landmass, but
A lot of
of
prisoners. So yes.
a lot of what?
A lot of prisoners.
Prisoners. Yeah, a lot of prisoners moved from England to Australia.
Moved.
Okay, got
That's one.
transported.
Okay. That's how history is rewritten, folks. Are you
Oh
also
my-
going to say that
Oh my gosh.
how my ancestors got here, we were moved from our
No,
homeland?
we were moved. You moved. No, yeah, that's bad.
Okay,
they
I'm just
were
giving you a hard time. Go ahead.
But there's a lot of landmass in Australia that is unlivable. Whereas New Zealand, I mean, it's two islands, and yeah. Now I realize how small it is. It's true that we probably do have a bit of a complex about that. But anyhow, I grew up in New Zealand, and then moved to Canada for a couple of years, and then moved to Australia when we were 15.
Was your dad in the military too?
I know. Well, this is the thing. I literally just clicked. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, my dad was not in the military, but we both have a similarity that I honestly didn't occur to me until this very moment.
Yeah.
That we've both lived in different countries and different cultures that are not our own.
It's true.
And
A different privilege, you know. We were sent by the government. We didn't have a choice. You guys willingly chose to go, to cities that you wanted. I'm just roasting you today.
Yeah,
That's
you
what-
really are. You're on
yeah.
something. Maybe
When I'm sick,
when you're sick, you're really spicy. Okay, so New Zealand, Canada, back to New Zealand, and then to Australia, and then I moved to LA. But I'm even thinking like when I moved to LA and I was struggling because anytime, I mean, I was 27, 28, anytime you move by yourself to a new country, you don't realize how difficult it is. And if you've always lived in the same city or the same country, then you don't really relate. But it was like completely debilitating. Like I didn't realize how much grief I had in moving here. But all that to say is like you were so good and patient with me, even though I was an absolute mess. And I remember conversations where you're like, wow, are you okay? Like, and then I just burst into tears like in the middle of wherever we were. You're like, okay, obviously you're not okay. I'm like, I'm not okay. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I've told you so many times that I think I would have broken up with me if it was reversed because I was such a mess and you still kept patient with me. But I think now that I think about it, like you were so, because you had moved, even though it was more when you were younger, you had moved so many times in your life that you were much more like understanding that this was different for me, that I didn't have I didn't have any friends, I didn't have a car. Like everything was new to me when I moved here to live. And you were so patient with me, and I just realized like, oh, hey, that's an amazing part of who you are, but also maybe that's where we had similarities, and then maybe you were like, okay, I'm just gonna stick this out because I'm curious where this is gonna go. I don't know what you thought, but
So yeah, who knows? So long ago, where but in terms of curiosity, why is it an important part of a relationship, both establishing early on and then also as a relationship continues?
well, I remember when I first saw you, I was curious about you, and one being that you're black, and I had never seen many black people, so I was like, oh my gosh, I love the black culture.
Let's clip this, and can't wait to just put it right there. I was curious about you because you're black. Keep going. Yeah, I'm glad my blackness interested you.
Oh, geez. I don't know if I like this episode. I think I gotta go.
That's good. People are gonna love it.
They're gonna love it. I'm gonna hate it, but that's okay. I'll do it for the pod.
But there are not a lot of black people in New Zealand.
No,
And by not a lot, there's like none.
None. There's
Yeah.
islanders in New Zealand, and there's some islanders in Australia. And this is the thing, like, I was always curious about other cultures that were different from me. Like, it just makes me think. We'll go back to the relationship part.
Yeah, let's go back quickly, but keep going.
I know you don't diverting, but whatever. When I was 14, a girl came out of nowhere, new girl from New Jersey. She's American Indian, and she moves to New Zealand because her dad moved to open up an Indian restaurant in New Zealand, in Wellington. And I remember the first day seeing her, and no one was talking to her, and I ran up to her and I sat next to her and I was like, tell me everything about American culture. Like, tell me, like, were you a cheerleader? Because I think I was watching an American high school show about two twins. We used to, funnily enough, because I'm a twin, so we used to watch this show every morning. And so it felt like my dreams had just come alive. And she was like, oh my gosh, no one seems to want, like, no one's curious about me, and I'm literally lonely. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can we be friends? Because I want to know everything about growing up in America. So it makes me think, like, oh my gosh, that was from the get-go, which I know it was for you too. But how much richer my life was in becoming friends with her. She became my very best friend, one of my very best friends. And we went through, like, our teenage years together. And we did hip hop dancing together. Like, she got me into hip hop dancing because she was an amazing dancer. Like, it just opened up my world completely.
Yeah.
And she helped me find things that were inside of me. Like, I was dancing and doing ballet, but I had never really done hip hop before. Never thought I could. And because of her, she helped me bridge into hip hop dancing, which became a huge love of mine. And hip hop was a huge love of mine. And so it's funny how, like, you connect to someone and then they open up this whole world to you that you never knew existed.
Yeah.
And then they help you feel connected to it and more, like, it just changed my whole life. Now, going back to you, seeing you for the first time, there was something about you, obviously, just, you seemed kind. I mean, how can I tell? But you were talking to a little girl. I overheard the conversation. I was like, okay, he's kind. But also, you're very different from me, and I've always been curious, like I said, of black culture. So I was like, oh, there's just something about you. And I'm like, I want to know who he is. So I went up to you and I said hi, and we connected. But I think that is a huge part of relationships. I think curiosity is a posture of your heart, right? It's a posture of your mindset is, I'm completely open. I know nothing, and I'm going to tell you I know nothing. Like, and what is interesting, being married to you and being part of your life for 15, 16 years, I don't know, is there's been so many times you've taught me things about being black in America that I was completely naive. And so my life has got richer and broader and deeper because now I get to see the world through your eyes and your experience that I never would have experienced. I would have just been in my own bubble.
Yeah. Question. Did you watch Save the Last Dance before we met?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, the week before we met. I feel like you just described like our meeting. It sounds like the plot of Save the Last Dance. Or say So You Think You Could Dance, or did
No,
it Save the
no,
Last?
you said Save the Last Dance.
Okay, I couldn't remember which one. What
Yeah,
a great
someone-
movie. What a
I
great,
loved that movie.
right? 2000, of course, right? Julia Stiles.
Even though
Go back and watch the movie. It doesn't hold up
it doesn't
well.
hold up well. The dancing doesn't hold
It
up
does
well.
not. No, dancing's terrible.
Especially the final. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, her last piece. Shout out Julia. You crushing a girl. I love.
I mean, she really opened up. It was an amazing role and amazing. She was a great actress. But the dancing.
She's a great actress. Yeah, Yes, you are, Julia. You crushed it. I do love you in the Bourne movies, though. It's one of my favorite series, as you know.
Yeah.
But Save the Last Dance was a great interracial film in the early 2000s. That is comical if you go back and watch it. But yeah, like that's the beauty of our story, us coming together, the foundation of our relationship. We had to decide, do you simply share your story and have the other person come to your side, or how do you bridge the gap and see where they're coming from and meet each other on their sides? Because there's things that you knew growing up and experienced that I'd never heard of, and vice versa. And it could have been issues that we, kept coming up against in different cultures and different challenges and different experiences, or they could be the very things that actually brought us closer together because we wanted to know more about the context, And yeah, there's things that can be racially based. There can be also things that are preference based. There's things that are just interest based, not just ethnicity, culture, but American culture, New Zealand culture. I remember the first Thanksgiving that you ever had in America. You were so confused when we went to one house and had a massive Thanksgiving meal. And you're like, cool, I just had my first Thanksgiving dinner. And then I was like, no, that's just stop one. And then we went to another house and we had a great Thanksgiving, part two.
Yeah.
And I can't eat another thing. And I was like, well, you're going to have to, because we still have a third stop. Yeah. And just
I've never been so sick. I was like, just my body was in pain after eating so much.
But now you love Thanksgiving, right? Isn't it one of your favorite holidays now?
Yeah, I mean, I do.
Wow, no, I heard the hesitation in your voice.
I appreciate the food, and I appreciate what it. Like, I love the fact that in America, you guys.
Hey, you about to say we next year, right?
Yeah.
Come on, citizenship test, let's go.
Is like the way that in America you celebrate so many things. And someone was asking me recently, like, oh, so in Australia, do you celebrate other things that, or a similar holiday to Thanksgiving? I'm like, no, like we really have very little holidays or celebrations. And so I love that about America, that once November hits, I mean, the fact that even Halloween is a big thing. It's not even, if you go out trick-or-treating in New Zealand, you're alone.
Yeah.
No one's doing a thing. Halloween doesn't exist.
Sure. And there's different pockets of Halloween here, because you have trick-or-treating for kids, but then you also have parties
Halloween
here,
parties. That's a good
in
point.
LA. It's
huge.
There's a lot of people in LA that Halloween is their favorite holiday.
Yeah.
More than Thanksgiving, more than Christmas, because of all the parties.
Yeah, and the dressing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no one dresses up. Like, the first Halloween I ever experienced was when I was 6 in Canada. So that was a whole new thing. So you've got Halloween, and then you have Thanksgiving in November, and then Christmas in December, like, bam, 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 right together. Like that, we don't have any of those things. We just have Christmas.
Yeah.
And Christmas in the summer, which is just...
Yeah, Santa and board shorts. It's not the same. Yeah.
Santa
How do
and
you,
board
yeah.
shorts.
How do you, I never fully asked you this. I knew it was in the summer, but how do you guys do the whole North Pole thing? Because North Pole is snow, it's winter, it's cold. Like, obviously that's the majority of the world celebrate. But yeah, what's the lie or the trick that you...
I don't think we need it. We just...
Just like, oh?
Kids just like, oh yeah, Santa travels to Australia and it's summer, whatever.
And he's in board shorts, yeah?
Yeah.
All
He
right.
surfs over here.
Instead of taking a sleigh, he just surfs the Pacific. Makes sense. That tracks.
That's so funny. I don't even know if we can talk about it, but I remember being in Canada and seeing snow outside the window on Christmas Day and thinking this is the most magical thing I've ever experienced. Like, I actually We should get that. We should experience that somewhere for the kids.
Oh, they desperately want it. They
That
keep
would
saying
be-
they want snow.
Yeah.
River yesterday.
Really?
I don't want to live in LA anymore.
What?
I want to live somewhere where it snows.
I mean-
Christmas is supposed to be in the snow. I'm like, I know, buddy. Just I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, he would love the snow.
Yeah, maybe do a Christmas in the snow one year.
No, we have to do it. Yeah. That was the most magical thing because that's the funny thing. I mean, American culture really dictates what Christmas looks like. And so it really doesn't feel like Christmas. I mean, it does. But when I saw snow, I was like, this is what it feels like. The lights and the snow falling outside. I'm like, wow, there's nothing more magical than being cozy on the inside. And like knowing Christmas is tomorrow. Yeah. Anyhow, I don't know why we ventured into all the holidays.
Sure.
You were saying like you love Thanksgiving. So yeah, do I love it? Yes.
The thing about curiosity,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't have those experiences. You wouldn't have those moments. You wouldn't have like the times that you remember because they feel different. I think that's also an aspect of why curiosity is essential to relationships because you need things to feel different. You need new environments so that you have new learning. You need new challenges so that you have to develop new skills, right? And you'll notice in a relationship, right? Like when a relationship begins to fall apart, a lot of times what you begin to, if you reverse engineer and contact trace, you see that curiosity started to be lost as well.
Wow.
That you just
Good point.
become okay with the norm. You become okay with the standard, with the average, and you don't actually find ways to increase the curiosity, not just in the other person, but more specifically in yourself.
Well, I think that's the thing is that you can think, oh, that person's still the same, so why do I need to be curious about them? But I feel like I'm constantly curious about what you're thinking.
Now, it's an interesting thing with that comment you just said.
Yeah.
Is because one of two things is true. When you say, oh, the person is still the same.
Yeah.
Is that, yes, they are, that they stopped growing.
Yeah.
And that's a bad sign. But the other side is that you stopped learning.
You're stop being curious of that person.
Yeah, but the way you learn about somebody is that you're curious
Okay.
about them. But you're always supposed to be learning about the other person. You're always supposed to be learning new things, new, interests, new preferences. Because most people don't stop growing. It's that they start growing in other areas that you don't have access to.
Wow.
And that's a bad sign in a relationship. That's when a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a significant other, they start picking up other interests on the side that you don't know anything about.
Yeah. Like they start building another world, you mean?
Yeah, and it could be subtle and it could be, seemingly innocuous, and it's just a cooking class, But it's like if you're not a part of that cooking class, it's like a whole other version of them that's being birthed.
Yeah.
As you start picking up, extra shifts at work, and you start picking up other interests. You start getting into stock trading and day trading, all this stuff that's separate from the person that you're most intimately connected with.
Yeah.
It's because on one side, the person doesn't want to share those things with you because you don't think you care. And then the other side is you stop asking because the person has become less interesting to you. And so you don't care about the things that are interesting to them. And that's what we have full control over.
Okay, I'm just going to clarify. So even if someone starts a new passion, it's not just the fact that they start the new passion, it's the fact that you have stopped asking them about that passion.
Yeah.
And so then then it becomes separate, because if you are still you can have passions without your spouse being involved.
Absolutely. I'm a massive sports fan.
Yes.
You're a limited sports fan who's coming closer and closer, right?
Yeah.
But I remember early on you trying your darndest to connect and share things and trying to find the piece that would be authentic to you. 'Cause that's the other thing. You don't have to fake it. You got to find something that's interesting about it.
Yeah.
Because it's so that you have conversation starters, so that you have connection pieces.
Yes, that's good. That's true.
Right? It is important that you care about the things that the person you care about cares about.
Yes.
And your hook became stories because
Yeah.
you're fascinated with people. So I'll never forget Michael Vick. That, you know, I'm a 49er fan, and since I was 3 years old, that's my squad, that's my team. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you started talking to me about Michael Vick and how, you know, he's your favorite player. And at the time, he was on the Eagles, so you're an Eagles fan. I was like, Michael Vick? Why the heck do you care about Michael Vick? And it's because you heard the story about a guy who was the best player in the NFL, and then he goes to prison
Yeah.
because of a crazy dog fighting scandal, and he comes out of prison a changed man and and he gets a second chance.
Yeah.
And he becomes like one of the best players in the NFL again, and the story captured you.
Yes.
And so then I go, okay, that's the hook. If I want Beck to care about sports, I gotta find stories that she cares about.
Yeah.
And so that's whenever we talk about sports now, right?
You tell me stories.
I tell you stories.
Well, it's
so,
also-
so that we can connect. I know I'm always gonna care more about sports
Yeah.
than you, but I love how you've cared about sports more because you've cared about me more.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it makes me think like, oh yeah, there is a reason why on Netflix I watched the quarterback series. What was the other one? Receiver, which I love those two. If you haven't watched those documentary series, so good. Even if you don't like sports, like now I'm like, I really need to I need to start watching football more so I can. But when they show the clips of football, it's much faster, so it's easier to get.
It's not
into.
a 3.5 hour game.
Exactly.
Yes.
But watching those things, because I know, okay, this, even the 49ers was in the receiver.
We had two more players, yeah.
Yeah. So that was always interesting because then I could bring up, I can't remember his name, but the different receivers, like, oh, what do you think about him? Or like, and I send you on Instagram, like every sports story that comes up on my feed. I'm like, oh, what do you think about this? Or what is, like, tell me the backstory about this.
Yep.
So it is interesting that I don't even know if I realized I was doing that, but I guess that's so true, is that we've been married 13 years. And you're right, I'll never truly understand sports the way that you understand sports, but I love hearing your thoughts on sports.
Yep.
And I also just like love that you love it and love that you listen to podcasts about it, and like, yeah, and I'm always curious about it and want to connect with you.
Yeah. And same is true with me in musical theater, right?
I don't know. I don't know if that's the same thing. Have you been interested in it?
Yes, remember? I showed my love for you and
Oh, by taking me to
see Wicked. Yep, not the movie. This is years ago. Went to see Wicked at Pantages on the stage, and I was fully ready to just take one for the team.
Yeah.
That was this is me showing how much I love you. This is me being curious about something because it matters to you and you care.
Yeah.
And I was fully ready to be like, not my thing, because I don't understand musicals. I don't understand theater. But I want to understand you. So bought those tickets to Wicked, and I cried like a little baby. Cried like a little Viola Davis tear coming down the cheek, and it's like, dang, they got me. You know? But probably still, I don't love theater as much as you do, but
I love theater in general. Yeah.
Appreciate it. And I've become more curious about it. That's the thing. When your love and curiosity will always coincide. The more curious you are is because the more that you love.
Love the person, yeah.
The more that you love something, the more you want to dive into it. And they'll always be synonymous with each other. So if you want to increase your curiosity, then you must increase your capacity to love.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because that's the same thing with our kids. Like, Sai's into anime, so I'm like, let's get into anime, you know? And I'll watch it with you, and I love the Ghibli movies, so it's really not that hard, actually, to love what he loves.
Sure.
But I think that's with all relationships, right? Is like, okay, if you care about that person, then you care about the things that they love, and you want to connect with them. So
what do you do if curiosity has been lost? What do you do if you're with somebody, maybe somebody's listening, and they're like, yeah, I stopped being curious about my spouse. I stopped being curious about my significant other. Like, what's a practical first step to reigniting that curiosity.
Well, I think having conversations
Mm-hmm.
and like asking a question. I remember we asked each other, like it was a prompt from a book, but I wish I could remember the actual question. It said something like, oh, it was when when has the when was the last time that you were proud of me?
Mm.
And you said I was proud of you this last week when you said yes to Carlos to doing like an event, and I knew that it would be tough for you to find the time, but you still said yes. And it was so funny because I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I thought you were mad at me for saying yes to the event.
That's
Like that's the
interesting,
we talk about communication. I think we keep talking about communication.
yeah.
But that's so funny how through text message, when I said to you, hey, Carlos asked me to do this thing, I said yes, you know, hope that's okay, kind of thing. And you were like, oh, you really think you can do it? Like, you're taking care of me. You're making sure I was fine with it. But how I read it was, oh, you're disappointed that I was doing it.
Mm.
So then when we had an intentional conversation and that question was brought up and you said that's when you were proud of me, it like hit me hard because I was like, wow, this whole week I thought, dang, he's disappointed I said yes. But you were actually proud of me.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wonder all the things we miss because we don't ask the question, like those intentional questions of when were you proud of me?
Yeah.
Because we don't say them because we're too busy and we're just going through life and we think it's obvious. Like maybe you thought it was obvious that you'd be proud of me,
Sure,
that
sure,
I would
yeah.
say yes. And here I was thinking in my own bubble, my own head, that you were upset with me
Yeah, that's
and
interesting.
disappointed. That's the complete opposite that you were feeling. So if we hadn't asked that question, I never would have known, and I probably would have just brushed it off and moved on. But it does make me think, like, being curious to know, being curious, asking the poignant questions that get you one layer deeper than the surface level of like, how are you doing? How was your day?
Yeah.
Which is a given. We will say that to each other every day.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we always take the time to say, like, ask a question like that.
Yeah. When was the last time you were proud of me? Let's take the time now since you said
Okay.
how significant that was.
Oh my gosh. I think
And it was so long ago. It's
no.
So difficult.
No, it wasn't. It was that you spoke a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I don't know. I think you spoke before we spoke, but I remember thinking, gosh, like I know how long and how hard this is to prepare a talk. And obviously our weeks, I feel like I'm saying this a lot, that we're so busy, but I really felt like, oh my gosh, this is such a busy week. I don't know how he's going to find the time to do it. And then you got on stage and then you shared one of the most beautiful talks, and you had that moment when you asked Marcus to come up on stage. Like you took a risk. And I remember the beginning of the talk thinking to myself, I'm just going to be open, because I don't really even know what you were talking about. Sometimes I do know what you're talking about, but this particular day, I was like, I don't know what the talk is about, but I'm just going to be open that I get to hear something new and I get to hear from God from this message and be open-minded. So anyway, we go through the talk and then you switch it up by asking Marcus on the stage and you walk around the room, and I literally just had one tear like rolling down my face because I was like, what is this? What is happening? Like watching you go where you felt like God was leading you and taking a risk for the sake of others so that others would find God, to me was, and it's like not only you did it for everybody else, but you did it for me. Like I felt God through that moment. So I was like the most proud. I was like, who is this person? And the fact that I get to be married to you and see all the hard work that goes into it, but then to see a moment where you're just completely free. And you were in another world, and I just watched you with pride and felt everything that you were saying. Felt the whole room shift. And I was like, that's beauty right there.
Thank you, love. I appreciate you.
So when was the last time you were proud of me?
Well, on that note, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for listening. That was so many moments. I mean, the month of December, the fact that we have 3 children with birthdays, and then also work stuff. You did a pop-up, you know, you've done multiple pop-ups recently, that doing styling gigs, one-on-ones, the Mosaic First Sunday team, every first Sunday do a whole world, and you lead that team. So, I mean, fill in the blank of the millions of things, but what I love about you and what's so proud of you is that you don't let complexity slow you down. That you find ways to get things done, and for people to know that they're worthy of your time by all the yeses that you say, without quality diminishing, you know. And yeah, you're a complexity savant, which I guess the only way that could work when you have 4 children. You have to deal and begin to learn how to work with complexities. But yeah, that you navigate the world around you with a level of ease and intentionality that is very rare.
Thank you.
And so very thankful to be alongside of you in the midst of all that. You know, maybe last thoughts when you're thinking of like curiosity, and maybe we'll do a part 2.
No, we're definitely going to do part 2.
Definitely got to do a part 2, you know, because curiosity is essential, you know, because the world around you should be your classroom. Like, I love learning from everything. I think that's an aspect of why we're both curious people. What fuels it? Why we're always meeting new people. You know, friend groups are changing. There's always a new person at a dinner, at a holiday that I didn't know before. It's because it's somebody that you've welcomed into our world, and, you know, and then sometimes vice versa. But it's because we have become fascinated with humanity. We've become fascinated with what we can learn from the world around us. And if you will have that mindset mentality in every relationship that you have, especially when it comes to romantically, the sky's the limit in terms of the intimacy and the depth that you can have in your relationship. Like, that is what will ensure that it will thrive, and it will last, and it will continue to build, is when you see that person not as an object that you found, but as someone that you've been entrusted with helping to blossom. And when you see that stewardship in a relationship, which we all should, you know, that I want to help unpack layer after layer after layer, that I want to be a part of the new you that's being birthed and formed every season and every year, and, you know, and every opportunity to let the best version of yourself be unleashed. I don't want to miss that. I don't want to be an observant, you know, I don't want to be a spectator. I want to be somebody who's contributing and is along for the ride, and can celebrate that that phoenix rising from the ashes. And so wherever you are in a relationship, maybe you feel stagnant, maybe things have become too common. You don't have any, you have no control over the person they become, but you do have control over the person that you help birth from the inside out.
So that just reminds me of the Kenrick and Sonequa episode that we did, that just keeps living. Like, it has a life of its own, and it's just living out there somewhere in the Instagram world.
This is true.
And so many people have so many opinions on it. It's been the most commented reel, because it's so, what's the word I was looking for? Not diversive, but divisive?
Thought-provoking.
Thought-provoking. Divisive. Because what she said was, and you have to watch the episode to get the whole context, but what she says is that God told her, you can't be mad at the man you haven't helped him become. And so many people are furious with that because they're like, well, why is it my responsibility how my spouse is? Like,
Sure.
They should take responsibility for being better. But what you just said, which is like a softer way of what Sneakwa said, which is actually is your responsibility as someone who's in relationship with someone else. Like, if I'm not doing good, obviously I'm number one responsible for it, but you're connected to me now. So it's like, well, it should be your responsibility to help that other person become better. Like, are you creating the best environment for them to flourish and for them to be the best selves that they can be? And sometimes I think it looks like you being better. Like, I've seen you rise. I've seen you change in your life. And I'm like, dang, I don't want to be left behind. So I'm going to have to like step up. And just by me saying I have to step up and like going for things more, saying yes to things more, I've started to change too. So you've created that environment, but then the other side is like you making sure that you care for me, that you love me, that you're curious about who I am, that I'm a value to you. And that we're not just playing house. But our relationship is like meaningful to you. That it's meaningful to your life, that we're doing good and that I'm doing good. So I love that you said, okay, making sure that you're creating an environment for someone else to flourish and for someone else to be better. And you've created so many environments for me. Sometimes you're telling me the hard truths and sometimes you're encouraging me to be the best that I can be. Like, I've become better because of my proximity to you.
Vice versa.
And that's why I think, obviously that reel can be thrown out of context, but that's really the substance behind that, is that the God was like, hey, if you haven't been curious about the things he's curious about, then you're missing out on the Kenrick he's becoming. And you're not helping him become closer to you because you're stopped being curious about him.
Yeah, it's good.
So watch the episode if you haven't watched the episode, because it's so good. There's so many insights that they both talk about that's so good. And I definitely think we need to do a part 2 of curiosity, because it's much more layered and deeper than we think. And I think being curious about someone else means you have to let go of something of yourself. Like, I had to let go of, I know what's best, or I know something, what I think is true, to then be changed by you, to go, oh, I didn't see it that way, but now let me find out how you see it.
Yeah, it's good.
So I want to delve into that more.
We're gonna dive into it more. Let's be more curious. Let's be more interested. And also let's be more interesting. Like, the more interesting you are, the more curiosity is naturally drawn to it.
It's true.
And so this week, maybe if you can ask your significant other, your spouse, the questions that we kind of unpacked today. When was the last time that you were really proud of me? And then maybe in the comments and the DMs, let us know like how that impacted your relationship, or what some of the things that were said, and how maybe there's some breakthroughs. Ask your spouse, your significant other, when's the last time I made you laugh? Or what are the things that you're curious about and interested in that maybe I haven't been asking you about enough? Hopefully this week, let's take time to be more connected, more interested, and see that curiosity may have killed the cat, but it can save your relationship.
Oh my gosh, we had to end with that.
Come on now, put the cheese in there. Thank you so much for listening to Unguarded and this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Go ahead and like, subscribe, comment, share, review, do all the things, because it helps us get this podcast out around the world, which latest count was 32 different countries that Unguarded has made its way into. So excited for the next 32 that we get to be a part of. We love you so much. Happy New Year, and we'll see you on next week's episode. Bye.
Bye.